Are they gone yet? Okay. Well, this is for the DMs, and I tell you, my biggest fear is I'm going to somehow put this out in the wrong area and everyone will get to see it and ruin the fun. But hopefully I won't be that senile and we'll get that done correctly. Okay, it's a really simple starting campaign video. Children are being stolen off into the night, and the heroes are going to be looked upon to go rescue them, or at least try to track them down and find out where they are. The druids are kind of using this to gain control. Fear is always a great way to control people. All you have to do is look at 9/11 to understand that. When people think that someone's coming to kill them, they're usually willing to give up lots more of their freedoms and money and everything else. That's just the way it's always been in history. So they've got their own little motivation here. They're also trying to basically crack down on any potential Fae that might leak into their city, because they're still scared of them, and pretty much everyone else is too. The elves are the boogeymen in this campaign, and with some reason. Anyhow, what we have in this mission is basically a very evocative event. I basically set this up that the main bad guy in this campaign battle is a dryad. Now, she's gone insane. She basically has lost all of her children. Every friend, everyone she knew has basically died throughout the war. She still lived through it, so she's off in the ruins of this elven city, basically stealing off children from the humans and raising them as elves. Now, she's been doing this for years and years and years, thusly the signpost that was seen that there were old people looking for their children. She treats them as her children, and they've been raised as elves. A lot of the older ones kind of believe that they are, or at least that they want to be, and that they love their mother, the new dryad, and will do anything for her. So thusly, the final encounter between the dryad and what appear to be a few elves is actually the dryad and a few of the older children. Now, stealing in to grab these children are her fae folk. Now, at D&D First, which is what we're starting here, the account is some basically kobolds, but they're not. They're called, I think, knockers in Fae, but that's the different names. All various countries had different names for their little bogans, their little goblins, whatever. Now, they're low level, so they're pretty easy to deal with. I don't want to make this a very tough encounter, but there is an interesting battle, hopefully, in the first bit. I've broken this video up into two. It's going to be basically, as I'm giving you the breakdown in the village, and then the first encounter. The second video will be basically any random encounters we have on the way, and then the encounters at the location itself, which is going to be the Dryad's Lair. Now, I'd like you to use as many maps as you can. You know, I'm not really big on drawing large, elaborate undergrounds. I've drawn hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them over the years and have bunches of them, and often I just drag them out and reskin them. In this case, most of the fighting is going to be done above ground. The Dryad is very effective above ground in the fact that she can tree walk, which is useful. She has a charm ability, which is useful. So it's very likely that this final adventure is going to potentially be very deadly for player parties that are not sophisticated in the game. So you have to be wary of that. The humans that will be old enough to fight, and depending upon the size of the party, I imagine it'll be 2 to 4 at most. They're first level barbarians. They're not wearing any armor, so they're getting the advantage of their using their con ability. They're going to be pretty tough. I've played this a few times now, and these battles have often been very nip and tuck. The fact that she can charm one of the player characters and use her to defend herself or to defend other things can make this very challenging. Losing 20-25% of your party can be devastating. Now, the player gets to maintain control of that under her charm, so hopefully they can and role play that. That can be difficult sometimes. Players don't like to be controlled, but we'll see how it goes. It's worked well in my group because mostly at this point I've run with fairly sophisticated players, but even they tried to sort of cheese it a little bit. But again, that'll be up to you. Now, The first encounter is with the little bogans. They come in and grab the kids. If the players had gone to sleep, or basically just were sort of hanging out in the tavern, they're going to be awoken by the screams in the night of some mother screaming that they've stolen her children. If they get to the front gate, thusly, if they had not gone to sleep, and they get to the front of the inn, if they're there, they're going to see the bogans carrying off 2 children into the night. I'm going to show you this on the map so you can get a strategic look at it. And then we're going to have what amounts to hopefully a running battle. If they crashed in and sleep, the next thing that happens, they just wake up and find out that the 2 kids have been kidnapped. They take them out and find that the parents were merrily sleeping in the woods, and their children apparently have been carried off. If they plan an ambush, I will list that as a second type encounter, where they can actually ambush the creatures coming in. The idea is that if they're kind of wise and look around and ask questions, they're going to see that basically all the kidnapping over the longer period of time has all come from the north, and where unfortunately the lazy fairies have not, circled around the city to attack different areas. They always come to the same place. So you could sort of figure out where they're likely to come, set up an ambush. And since knockers are not particularly smart, because essentially they're kobolds, they're pretty easy to ambush. They're going to run as quickly as they can if ambushed. If they have the children, they're likely going to try to resist fighting. They're going to try to get the children away. Now, because they're small, and the children, even though they're somewhat small, are still pretty much their size, they can't run if they have the children. Thusly, the problem is they can move their full 30 feet with one of the prisoner children, but if the party is moving faster than that, some of the little knockers are going to have to hold back to try to delay the party. Now, they're not really interested in killing or injuring any of the party members. That's really not what they've been ordered to do. The Dryad, though insane, is really a pacifist, as you'll see as we talk about the final story there. They'll run. They'll hold them off, try to buy some time, defend and dodge if they can, and then they'll disengage and run. If it looks bad for them, they might just make a run for it, not try to disengage, in which case they take attacks of opportunity. Now, the battle will run another map, which you'll see. At that point, there's a second encounter. The Dryad's not foolish. She knows these creatures are not that powerful. Now, what's going to be hiding in the woods is one more knocker and between 3 and 4 pixies or sprites. Now, in my encounters, I always mixed them as 2 pixies and 2 sprites. If you want to be really nasty, just all pixies is the way to go. Pixies are really effective. They have dispel, which means that if anyone tries to throw a sleep spell at them or their group, they can dispel it. Now, they can only do this once per pixie because they can only do other things. They have all kinds of other effective spells. They could even polymorph one of the knockers into a creature, which could do some more damage, potentially if they're pursued. But again, they're very pacifist. They're basically trying to get their people away. Now, the other thing the knockers and pixies will do too is if any of theirs are wounded or killed, they're going to try to rescue them and get them away. This is kind of important because this is the feel I want to get out there. These creatures, though the bad guys, kind of really aren't that evil. Now, this sort of hopefully will set into the minds of the players that maybe there's something else going on here. Don't try to allude to this. Don't try to, pile this on, because you want people to think that it really is truly the evil dark elves versus everyone else. But as you'll see, there's going to be various layers of color that I'm going to try to lay down on this campaign that you guys can use. They're going to show that not always things are as they appear. If the party pursues them or ambushes them, and they do run into that second ambush, which I will show you, it can be a pretty effective battle. You do their items. If you're going to use sprites, they have a bow that has sleep. It's okay. That at some point when they get the bogans, the little bogans or knockers to a safe point, the whole party will eventually retreat away. If they, for some reason, overwhelm the party, which could be possible if the party's kind of weak and they fail some sleep spells, because the pixies have sleep too, and they're going to throw it. no one's going to stay and hurt the party members. They're going to leave them. They're not going to cause any damage. They're going to gather up the best they can. There's going to be no capture. They're not interested. The Dryad is not interested in full-size humans. So that's all going to be basic, and then we'll go from there. That can lead into whether they pursue them, because if they're wounded or whatnot, they're going to leave a fairly good trail. They're not sophisticated. The little knockers are not that much at covering their tracks. And so the party with any reasonable ability should be able to follow them. Now, you can make tests on anything you would like that you think would be effective. I would say if they fail, normally what I do is if they fail a test to find them, they have a random encounter. If they succeed, because it's a short location move, they make it to the main locale and we go into that. So I will go ahead and switch the camera around and show you how I'm going to set up these encounters and run them. Again, I have different materials than you do, so if you want to use what you have, a dry erase or a board, whatever it is, I use tactiles. However you play it is perfectly fine. Also, if you want to change it up, you figure your party's better, a little stronger, you want to start them at a little higher level, feel free to use any other creature. Centaurs could have been it if the party was really high level. You could use pans, or I'm not sure what they're called right now. But any of the other creatures that you want to use that are fey would be in service of the Dryad. Now, they may or may not know she's nuts, but they're going to serve her because they love her, and they're pretty dedicated. So if there's a random encounter, it's very likely that the random encounter might indeed be more pixies than sprites. They'd be very effective and they'd fight. Centaurs could be it, but you could use anything else that you wish to use, whatever you might have a mission in. Maybe you want to have a random wandering ogre or something. That's good. The DMG does have a pretty good list of random encounters in the forest, and most of them for low level are not bad. I would stay away from gnolls. If you run into gnolls, you might want to throw out a couple elves. They'll fight retreating action. They'll likely be barbarians as well, but they'll be dex-based and fight with bows, and they'll try to get away as quick as they can because they're trying to regroup and re-strengthen themselves. They don't want to get into a heavy combat where they could lose. But if they are elves, they will fight with the humans to the death. If they can't get away, they'll gladly kill them. If they wipe out the party, they'll likely take them to the Dryad, and then she'll deal with them as if it was a failed mission on that part. So we'll turn it around, we'll get started, and hopefully this will be helpful for you. Any information, any questions, please ask. If you have feedback, positive or negative on this, let me know. I kind of like this. I'll be adding, more of your traditional content on so you can download maps and things like that in the future. I'm trying to get a map maker of me to make me some nice looking area maps and campaign and adventure maps, and hopefully that'll be soon. But like everything, this all takes money and time, and both of those are obviously in short supply. So good luck on this. Fight me, devils, fight, for I hate peace, and enjoy the beginning of the campaign. This will be the start of the first encounter, assuming that the party members were investigating and not sleeping, but did not set an ambush. The party hears the scream. They get to the door and open it up to the inn. Actually, it's not really an inn. In Celtic society, it would have been sort of a house that would be open for travelers and the like, but it would act like an inn. But I always just try to use the most visual things I have because I try to make the game sort of as appealing. In some cases, I've used buildings and everything else. The knockers, as you can see over in the top left, have grabbed the little children and are now trying to head away into the woods. So the battle ensues at this point. We start the initiative, and people start rolling dice, and we see where things go. Assuming that the party can get the initiative, the idea is that they're going to step out and make some shots. I'm going to try to put this down and on my mount here, though I might lose some of the perspective, but I wanted to let you know where was going on at this point. The mother here on your left is chasing after them, trying to get their children. Assuming that the party, let's say, wins their initiatives and for some reason gets to go quicker than these creatures, they will then move out. If they have anything more than a short bow, and even if they can move out a little bit and get within range, their short bow should not have any penalties other than what you would have for whatever dim light is. So the party members, as you see here, might come running out and double move to keep in pursuit. that would be most likely one of the best things. But you and I know that no encounter lasts past the conflict with the enemy. So the minute the players start to do something, they're going to do something. Now let's assume that the archer can get to here and maybe make a shot. He might kill one of them or severely wound it. Now, this will be something, if he knocks one down in the back, one of the others will try to pick him up and carry him. If he does so, he won't be able to run either. He'll be the same restriction that the ones carrying the children are and can only move 30 feet. At that point, the mother might run out. There's really nothing she can do. She's effectively a non-combatant. She has a broom. That's not really going to threaten them, nor are they really going to attack her. They're just going to bail. They're going to move 30 feet, and that will take all of them off the map. Now, this is where we start to play a little bit of that moving campaign. They're off 30 feet. The archer can still fire, but because he's now going to have some intervening terrain, you basically give him the -2 for cover. If he's a ranger or something and ignores cover, then there's no problem. He's still within range. He sees them basically running for the tree line ahead. As the party pursues forward, then we're going to do what I standardly do in a running battle. I'm just going to move the map back. So I just remove all the pieces that are there. I take the piece that I've essentially used as my counter to the end, which is this log, and I move it all the way back to the farthest reaches of the item. That tells me how far back it is. I counted at this point, it's 25 squares. So they basically have moved the entire battle back 25. You count all the other characters back the same amount of distance. If they're not on the board, you tell them how many points of movement they're going to need to be there, and they're thusly there. Now, these guys are just at the periphery. They've just crossed over onto the map, and they're going to continue to run. Now, this is where the game is going to get interesting. Depending on who, again, if you're going to use a random initiative each turn, that might be kind of fun. It has a lot of different situations and advantages in that people can sort of see stuff happening. You can have a nip and tuck, but it adds to the time, and I'm not sure you want to do that. What you're going to start to see as I lay down is the tree line. This is where the other defenders are. At this point, again, you've seen the initial battle, which is with the knockers, and let me show you my card on those, if I can find it. There it is. The knockers are basically kobolds. They have the same statistics of kobolds. The difference with them is that they have nimble, which means, like goblins, they can disengage or hide as a bonus action. That's a nice little deal for them. Kind of makes sense for them being fey creatures. Also very much non-combative. Now, what you have next are the two things that are defending. One more knocker, plus you're going to have my pixies. And if you've not ever played these before, they're actually really effective. I kind of put all their spells down on the right, but I highlighted the ones up top. The Confusion, the Dispel Magic, Entanglement, and Sleep. They can only cast it one each, but that's a real effective spell. They also can go invisible at will, which basically means they can take an action to go invisible. So if they cast anything, they become visible, but all they have to do is just, on a following turn, use their action to become invisible. Can't be stopped, can't be countered. It's a natural ability, not a spell, because it's that superior invisibility. So they're going to be able to stay invisible. Now, they could do interesting things, like they could maybe polymorph one of the knockers that's with them and let them go do something, maybe like, like a snake or something. Anything to sort of slow them down. They have Entanglement, of course, and they can cast Sleep. That's very effective. What I ran, and it was substantially less effective, were sprites. I split it up into 2 pixies and 2 sprites in all the fights I made. I was really mystified by the fact these sprites had this little sleep arrow, which really turned out to be pretty cruddy. You're paying the same points for a monster that has nowhere near as good of effect on the characters as the pixie does. So anyway, you can use them. If your party is not maybe as savvy, I'd recommend you use them in addition. If the party's really terrible and you think, oh, these guys are brand new, or, I'm not sure how good they are, you could run just sprites, though I think that would make it a pretty easy battle for the players. This is the setup for the second encounter that the party will run into. Now, the first encounter was a medium encounter.
I kept it that way with 7 knockers, which are basically kobolds. That brought me within the top of the medium range. I added 2 more, but I assume they're non-combatants, and as you'll see as this game goes on, most of these guys are non-combatants in this fight. But this party here is a hard encounter. You have, as I said, you have pixies, and sprite, and another pixie, and 1 more knocker. Now, this is what I ran. If your party, like I said, is very talented, 4 pixies would be substantially more interesting of a fight, and potentially a fight that they could win. But what you have, as we were talking about here, is you've now pulled back the map. The party is slightly off the board or just about to enter it. The little knockers are starting on this edge, just out of your field of vision. They're going to flee. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. The ones carrying the children, again, as I told you, are restricted to 30 feet of movement. So they're going to go here. The others are basically trying to run cover. They're going to try to keep everybody at bay. Now, they have some missile weapons. They will shoot them at the party as they can, as they're in range and the like, just to kind of keep their heads down, but it's not really what they're planning on doing. You can give them short bows, which is what I would do, but they could easily just and these short bows do a D4, as I showed on the card, like cobalt weapons, or you can even just give them javelins, which makes them less effective, and that might be good. At this point, the party is pursuing onto the board. Now, let's assume that we get to this position, which was usually about the 4th turn, and the party has now started to engage the outliers. These guys will defend because they don't want to die. And then on their action, they will basically defend. When the guys make an attack, they will then use their bonus action to disengage and then either move around to re-engage another character who might have already acted, or to back up to again cover the party as they're moving. Now, again, not knowing players, and as you know as well as I, they're going to do all kinds of things. They're now in range from the secondary encounter, and that secondary encounter is going to take place. So, when they're in range for a sleep, one of the pixies will likely fire their sleep. Now, the pixies are not dumb. When they fire their... Now remember, this is where they're located, but you don't need to put anything but the knocker on the board because all 4 of these creatures are invisible. They'll become invisible when they do their special item, which is to, in this case, cast a sleep spell, let's say, or cast an entanglement, or something to slow the party down. They're going to fire the spell. They're then going to move into cover. And since they fly, they can take advantage of the woods and fly up into the branches, thusly giving themselves really good cover from any missiles or other things thrown that have to roll to hit against them. They will prepare, always keep their counterspell, and wait. If someone tries to cast a sleep or anything like that, they're for sure going to try to counter that. But any spell that could be directly targeting them, they'll likely try to counter if they are able to, because they only have like 2 hit points. So pretty much anything that hits them is going to finish them off. At this point, let's assume the battle is continuing to fight and there's nothing strange here. These guys again move their 30 feet of movement with their charge in tow. The rest of them are again trying to cover as best they can to keep the party from capturing and back the kids. So they'll likely move and dodge. All the time that they can, if they're not going to make a straight run for it, they're going to move and dodge. Now this thing gets to be a much tougher, super tough encounter at this point, because both of these encounters, assuming that they haven't killed more than 1 or 2 of these little guys along the way, if any, the party's now going to essentially, somewhere about this point, most likely catch up with them. Now, they could have caught up with them back there and killed a couple. That may have been the case. But now the full battle is on. Again, they're all going to dodge, to disengage, to move away. Sleep spells, sleep bows from the sprites if you're using them. If not, they're going to cast the spells. And I think at this point, my feeling is most of the time what we've had here is if the party can get a sleep off or something off that kills 1 or 2 of the pixies, they can pretty much stop this and maybe even destroy this party, which is not a problem. Capturing back the kids and rescuing them is not an issue. It's just going to make it tougher for them to find the lair. If the bad guys here are able to defeat the party or slow it down sufficiently the kids get away, then you're going to have a situation where there'll be an easy trail to follow. Any wounded ones are going to leave like a blood trail. They're going to not be as careful, especially the knockers, at moving through the woods. So any passable person with tracking is going to be able to follow them. If you have nobody with passable tracking, it's very possible that you won't have that. And you may have situations where as you are having them search to try to find the location from what minimal trails they're able to find, and you have failures, that's where I tend to put in random encounters. Normally, again, they're only going to have to make one success, but if they keep failing, they keep stumbling around in the woods, they're going to keep getting in random encounters, and that could really deplete their ability. Now, I've used all kinds of different things in this game for random encounters. What I really like to use and used really well, if you want to be kind of nasty, is I used a unicorn. Now, the unicorn doesn't want to fight if it's in the random encounter. It's basically going to just sort of kind of stay in front of the party and try to slow them down, sort of threaten and not really be in the fight. If they attack the unicorn, it'll likely make one charge, try to wound one of the creatures. If it does, it'll wound to subdue, which basically means if it goes to 0, it's not going to have a kill chance. It's just going to be knocked unconscious. And then the unicorn will flee. He's just trying to buy time. His job is not to kill anyone. He's not really protecting anything. He's doing the best he can for his friend, even though he may think that her motivations are dubious. But again, that's not his position. But it allows players to see a much tougher, kind of more interesting, definitely more fairy-based creature that they might not normally see this early on. Normally, this kind of beetle creature here is not going to be in the woods, but it could be. So you can knock it off if you please. But this is what you want to run, and if you have miniatures for things, run any encounters you want. I don't like orcs. I mean, I tend to not even be in my game, but it's not to say that they couldn't have come from the other world. You could have gnolls. They're not uncommon. They're not unheard of. There could be adventuring parties. They could be rogues. They could be brigands. They're kind of whatever you feel like, and make that challenge suitable for your party. Now, the downside of random encounters is they're very likely to beat up the party, especially if they're not specials already, under the control of the Dryad. So you've got that problem to contend with. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop this and just show you on encounter 2. Well, I guess I don't have to stop it. If for any reason the party sets up the ambush, this is going to basically be where the game starts. The fairies and spriggans are going to be farther back. They're not really expecting that they're going to have a conflict here, so they're hanging back a little bit, and they're just coming up with the party. The party could set up a trap anywhere around the city line and then maybe open fire on these guys long before they get a chance to get in to rescue the kids. Again, at that point, if they've done this, they've pretty much foiled the ambush. The little knockers will run. They're not going to stand up in a major fight, so they're going to flee. If the party is bloodthirsty, which is not uncommon, and pursues the creatures, and with a hope of maybe capturing them to find out information or whatnot, then this is where the pixies and sprites will attack, and they will throw their spells again to try to let their associate little knockers get away safely. Now, that's going to be constantly it. The goal for them here is to get people away. They're also going to try to take their dead. So if the humans have killed any and they're in any way able to grab them, they're going to pick them up and carry them off as they can. If it looks like they can't, they will leave them, but it's not the first choice. So this should give you a fair go-to of how I'm going to be wanting to run the color of this game. Now, you can change it. You can run it any way you want. If you don't see my vision is the same as yours, if you want to run satyrs, if you want to run other creatures, it's up to you. If your characters are higher level and you want to, ramp everything up, please feel free to do so. Now, I don't have a problem with hard encounters. I mean, there could be an owlbear, there could be a lot of different things in the woods. So random encounters can often be very deadly and very hard to predict. And if you look at the DMG random encounter charts and ones that are coming in some of the other expanded modules, a lot of times they're a lot tougher than what they tell you building encounters in the underground are. So feel free to make it however you like. But I wanted you to see this and give you an opportunity to see how I played it and how I would play it again. And then my second video will be up soon, hopefully if I get a chance today. If not, if I run out of light, I'll put it up tomorrow. And which case you'll be able to see the second and main encounter. So until we have a chance to talk again, fight me devils fight, for I hate peace. And keep gaming on.